let's talk about a day in the hole in prison. Because everyone's seen a movie or heard a horror story about the shoe or the box, but what does it really look like? And to be fair, over the 19 years that I spent in prison, the longest single stint I did was 90 days. I wasn't one of those guys who spent years or even decades back there, but I still had to adjust in some small way. And the first question always was, what is the designation that you're back there under? Because at least in Virginia, you basically had two classes. You had ADSEG and you had pre-hearing detention and all those, and then you had isolation. And isolation was pure punishment. Because if you're under isolation, you're not allowed to have anything but a religious text. And originally it was you're allowed to have a Bible, and then a Muslim guy said, hey, I need my Quran, and a Hindu guy said, hey, I need... Finally, they said, all right, you can only have one thing, and that's a religious text. You can't go outside, you're not eligible for rec, you're not eligible for phone calls. You were stuck in that cell for 10 days or 30 days or however long they punish you with nothing but that religious text. And I think this was a throwback to the whole Christian penitentiary idea that if we lock people away with a Bible, that they'll find God. But as we know now, that's not what happened. And most guys spend more time touching themselves than they do reading the Bible, and it generally contributes to their decline. You see guys really not do well after that first 10 days or second or third, and you just see them start to kind of lose themselves. When I think about one guy who we started to get hit with the shock shield, he'd been back there for months. And this used to happen. Guys would just get lost in the hole. They'd be back there, they'd get a new charge, or they wouldn't get the mental health evaluation, and they'd just be stuck. So he was back there just slowly just getting worse and worse until finally one day he was in the cell and he had basically crapped himself and he just was covered in feces. So they didn't know what to do, and of course they didn't have a proper mental health response, so instead they brought in the goon squad. They suited up in the Tyvek suits, which are basically like the hazmat suits, and they got the shock shield. If you've never seen one of these, it's terrifying. It's a giant riot shield, except it has a taser attached to the front of it. So you force somebody into a corner and then you tase the life out of them. It's exactly what they did to this guy in the cell. We saw him drug along the floor, thrown in the shower, the water turned on, and then they locked the gate behind him. That was the response to a guy in the throes of a mental health crisis. That was a response to someone who clearly needed help. And this was common. I mean, that was what was happening. People were sitting back in the hole and basically slowly getting worse. The question was, well, what were you going to do? Because if you were on isolation, or you didn't even have to be on isolation, all you had to be was broke. Because on all those other designations I mentioned, you could have your books, or you could do a phone call. It was supposed to be twice a month, but you could usually do more than that. Or you could write letters. But what if you didn't have any books? What if you didn't have anybody to write? What if you didn't have anybody to call? And that was far too common. So for me, the experience was dramatically different because I had the books. I always had the max number of books on my property, and I would read them and then turn them into the library or turn them into wherever to get another one. I always had books to read. I was also enrolled in college. I spent 15 years going to Ohio University by distance learning, so I always had college assignments to do. So when I was back there, I spent hours every day advancing or getting forward on what I was doing. But I also had people to write, and I also had people to call, so every mail call was really special to me. But there were a lot of guys who were back there who never got a letter the whole time, and I generally had something to look forward to every night. So again, the experience for me in the hole was dramatically different because of access to resources and access to social capital. But everybody did have a few things that they all shared. You either had rec or you had a shower. Those are your big things. That's the big event to look forward to in the hole. And rec, when you go, is not going out on the rec yard and doing pull-ups and playing basketball. It's getting walked backward to the door. Or let me start with this. Rec, they come in at 5 o'clock in the morning and they yell, who wants to go to rec? You have to kind of like stick out there and try to get their attention and notice, and then you're going to be on the rec list. And they do this at 5 o'clock in the morning because most guys don't wake up until breakfast, and breakfast isn't until 6. So if they ask you at 5 and nobody raises their hand, they don't have to take anybody out to rec. So you have to make sure you're up early and you're ready and somebody's beating on your door, or just you're trying to figure out some way to make sure you get their attention so you can get on the rec list. And then if you're lucky enough to get up early and do all that, they come in right after breakfast. They'll hit your door with the handcuffs, this really loud, sharp sound. You have to walk backwards to the door. You have to stick your hands behind your back, and they're going to handcuff you through the slot in the door. And then they're going to open the door. You have to walk forward to the bed. You have to get your knees on the bed, their little feet behind you, and then they're going to shackle you. And then you walk out, kind of waddling, doing the prisoner shuffle. Either go down the stairs if you're on the bottom tier, just kind of walk out the door. You go and there's a bench where you get back on your knees, and they take the shackles off you. And they walk you to the cage, and they lock you in the cage, and then they reach through the slot in the cage, and they unlock your handcuffs. All this to go like 20 feet. And then you're in the dog run, which is literally a dog kennel. It's maybe 6 foot by 3 foot, and you can walk back and forth. But it's the only time you get to get outside, breathe fresh air, to feel sun on your skin, or do all those things. It's a dramatically different experience, and it's amazing how quickly that became my hedonic set point. That became the thing that was just amazing to me. But being able to go out to rec was a big thing, but again, it was only every other day. And every day you didn't go out to rec, you got a shower. So rec was done in the morning by day shift. Showers were done at night. And a lot of guys, this sounds crazy, but didn't even take showers because it was one of the few bargaining chips they had. Because a lot of times they would get trays from the kitchen and the guy would be like, look, bro, you give me an extra dinner tray and I'm not going to ask for a shower. And to the guard, he's like, man, I give him something that I don't care about, that I don't want. Cool, I'm going to give him the extra dinner tray. And then that way I don't have to work tonight. I don't have to put him in the shower because it takes extra time. When everybody wants a shower that's all late into the night and they just want to sit around and watch TV or do whatever they're doing. There were even some nights where it didn't matter because basically they made sure almost nobody would get a shower. I remember one night I was at Nottoway, we were back there and it was the NBA playoffs. There was something. It was some big event that everybody wanted to see. So the first guy goes to the shower. He's like, hey man, it's ice cold. What is wrong with y'all? They're like, sorry, bro. Looks like it's just going to be cold showers tonight. And so they made sure that nobody wanted to go take a shower. When I was young and I was hard-headed, I was like, no, you are not going to cheat me out of my shower. Like, I'm not going to let you win. I'm going to make a point. So I made them. Basically, they still have to come around and ask who wants to go. I said I want to go. I go into the shower, take the iciest, coldest, most miserable shower I ever have in my life. But I'm gritting my teeth and I'm like, I will not give up and I will not give them the satisfaction of just screwing me out of a shower. So I get out there and all I have is towel and boxers and you're literally locked in a cage. They basically built cages around the actual showers. So I'm locked in there and I'm like, all right, yo, I'm ready to go back to my cell. I'm ready to, get cuffed up. And I remember the guy just looks at me. He's like, sorry, bro. Looks like it's going to be a while. Like, hope it's not cold in there. And then he goes back into the booth and starts watching TV. And I was like, okay, I see what this is. Like, I see what we're doing. So finally, 20 or 30 minutes, they come back. I'm just shivering, just absolutely miserable. I go back. They cuff me behind my back. They take me to the cell. They let me go. I just crawled under the blanket. It was just like absolutely dying, just shivering. But that was the fun part because in my mind, I wasn't going to let them win. And all I really did was lose myself. Those are the things we had to look forward to. And if you were lucky enough, like I was, to have mail call, when they came around for mail call Monday through Friday, that was a time where you get to like get love or feel connection to the outside world. And especially because so many people didn't have that, they tried to find that connection on the inside. And it wasn't anything romantic or inappropriate. It was that they were just trying to be connected. So, like I said, sometimes they'd be yelling through the vents or yelling out the door, and sometimes it was more of a community endeavor. There was a guy who used to run Jeopardy, and I remember he would always yell like, Jeopardy, 6 o'clock, and everybody would shut up at 6 o'clock. Remember when he first did it, he would read out the answers and everybody would yell and he would try to figure out who yelled first, and that just didn't work. So everybody would have to write down all the answers. He would put all the questions, or I guess technically in Jeopardy they're answers and you have to write the question, but you get what I'm saying. They would put that out there, and then people would have to write all the responses, and then we begin the fishing expedition. Because one of the cool things about the hole, if you look at Ingenuity, is the ability to get food or whatever contraband from any cell to another cell. Bottom tier, top tier, it does not matter. Guys will make sliders, guys will make hooks, guys will make kites, they'll figure out a way to fish it. So all of a sudden, you've got all the guys who play Jeopardy trying to get the thing, maybe pass it down one cell or pass it down 2 cells, then they pass it down along the way, or if you were lucky enough, like in the beginning we had trustees, in the end they stopped doing that. They would just collect them all, and then he would read out the winner. And sometimes he would do things like, he would save his cake from dinner, and whoever won Jeopardy, he would give them the cake, or give them a couple stamps, or sometimes he would have tobacco, because all the contraband stuff was back there. And I just remember thinking, like, that's so cool. This dude has built a community. Like, he has made us all feel included. He has allowed us to compete for something, to have these friendly interactions, be a part of something, and then even get a reward, get like a tangible prize. That's community building. And we didn't get to see each other, except outside in the rec cages, where we might be like in one cage or another, but like we were completely separated, yet we somehow felt together. And probably the most moving version of this I saw was this guy who used to sing. He was back there before I was, so this tradition was already established. But I go back there and it's like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and everybody starts yelling, hey, so-and-so, we need you to sing. Come on, bro, sing for us. Come on. Finally, after like 5 or 10 minutes of just being asked, he says, all right, man, y'all be quiet. And then he starts singing the most beautiful R&B you can imagine. I just remember sitting in my cell. It was almost like a movie, like got my back against the wall, my knees up, and I was just like, bro, that is beautiful. And it's dead silent except for him singing because everybody is stopping. Even the staff is stopping. Because as much as they want to go watch TV or do other things, they can't enjoy that job. Like, being in the hole is being in the hole, whether you're working there or living there. So this guy sings. He might sing for an hour or a little more or a little bit less, but every night he would sing. And I remember feeling in that moment like we were a part of something. I don't know what it was, and we had walls and bars between us, but in a weird way, in those moments, I felt more connected than I probably ever did in prison. So at the same time that I was the most divided and the most isolated, I was somehow the most connected because we were all going through this common experience of something that was just terrible, that was dividing, that was traumatic, and somehow we found a way, like the human spirit found a way to connect together. And I remember being grateful in that moment. The hole was a terrible place, and I strongly recommend that nobody do it there, but you find a way. The reality was, in the hole, I built a tradition. I built a routine. In the hole, I built a routine of meditating and stretching and exercising and writing and reading and doing my schoolwork. It just became my monastery. And it helped so much that I had the resources and that I had the connections on the outside. Because again, most guys don't. Their connection is to the guy in the cell next to him. My connection was to people out in the world living amazing lives and doing amazing things. And that gave me an advantage over most everybody else that I met. But whereas I turned the hole into a monastery, Again, to many people, it became a psych ward. It became a place where they slowly became worse and worse. And I saw guys really lose their minds back there. And that's why that I believe, just like the UN says, the whole is psychological torture. It is not beneficial. It is not helpful. Now, maybe if you give everybody the resources and the family connections and the educational material, sure. But if you're not doing it, all you're doing is literally torturing people. And that's why we need to move away from long-term segregation everywhere in the US.